What if I told you the task you're procrastinating on right now could be the smartest business decision you've made all week? What if that social media post you're stressing about is actually costing you money instead of making it? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most entrepreneurs spend up to 80% of their time on activities that generate less than 20% of their revenue. And I was the queen of this backward business model until one rainy afternoon changed everything. A few years ago, I found myself in that classic entrepreneur situation, working all the hours, juggling a million tasks, and feeling like I was on a hamster wheel. I was creating new courses, I was posting on social media, writing daily emails, hosting a weekly Facebook Live show, and trying to keep up with every new marketing trend. Talk about exhausting. Then one afternoon, I sat down with my notebook and a cup of tea and decided to drill down into what was actually moving the needle in my business. What I discovered was eye-opening. Just 3 activities were generating about 80% of my revenue, while I was spending most of my time on things that barely made a dent in the bottom line. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to find your own profit sweet spots, those golden activities that deserve the bulk of your attention. By the end of this episode, you'll have actionable steps to identify, prioritize, and focus on the tasks that truly power up your business. So grab a notebook because we're about to streamline your path to greater profitability without working more hours. So let's get started. Before we get into the how-to, let's get clear on what we mean by profitable activities. These aren't just tasks that bring in money. They're the specific actions that generate the highest return on your invested time, energy, and resources. For those of us who are solo business owners, this distinction is crucial. When you're the CEO, the content creator, the marketer, and customer support all rolled into one, how you spend your hours directly impacts your bottom line. You don't have the luxury of all those departments and teams to handle everything. Your time is finite and it's precious. And it's important to realize that not all revenue-generating activities are created equal. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that if something brings in money, it's worth doing. But that's missing half the equation. Here's an example. Let's say that you spend 10 hours a week maintaining a low-ticket offer that brings in about $500 a month. Meanwhile, you have a membership program that needs just 5 hours weekly, and it generates 5 times that amount. The membership program is the clear ROI winner. This is why understanding profitability is your ticket out of the busy but broke trap that so many solo entrepreneurs fall into. It's about finding the activities where your effort multiplies, not just adds up. All right, let's get practical. The first step in uncovering your profit powerhouses is to list every single activity that you do in your business. And I mean everything, from creating content to answering emails to scrolling through Instagram for research. I remember when I first did this. I was shocked to count over 30 different activities that I was doing regularly. No wonder I felt scattered. So here's what I want you to do. Grab that notebook I mentioned earlier and create a brain dump of all your business tasks. You're just brainstorming here, so don't overthink it. Include everything from the big, obvious revenue generators like creating and selling courses to the smaller tasks like updating plugins on your website or formatting your newsletter. Don't rush this part. You might need to track your activities for a week to get a complete picture. One trick you can use is to set a timer to go off every hour during your workday. When it dings, you jot down exactly what you've been doing. After a week, you'll have a pretty accurate map of where your time is going. Now comes the fun part. Go through your list and circle the activities that directly contribute to revenue. Be strict here. We're looking for direct, not indirect contributions. For example, creating a course that you sell, that's directly contributing to revenue. Tweaking the button colors on your sales page, probably not directly contributing to revenue. Here's a personal story. When I first did this, I was spending hours each week creating these beautifully branded Instagram graphics. I told myself that this was marketing, but when I really looked at my analytics, almost no sales or even leads were coming through that channel. Meanwhile, Pinterest was generating solid leads every single day. It's like trimming a tree to help it grow stronger. By cutting back the branches that aren't bearing fruit, you give more energy to the ones that do. In your business, identifying these core activities is how you start redirecting your precious time and energy to where it matters most. Once you've identified your core activities, it's time to determine which ones are truly your profit superstars. This is where the rubber meets the road, friends. For each activity on your list, you're going to calculate its return on investment. Don't worry, you don't need a finance degree for this. Here's my simple formula. Take the revenue generated by the activity over the past 90 days, then divide that by the hours you spent on that activity. This will give you a dollars per hour figure that will probably be incredibly revealing. Let me share what happened when I did this in my own business. My weekly podcast was taking up about 8 hours per episode when I factored in everything: planning, recording, editing, and promotion. When I looked at the conversions, it was generating about $1,200 a month, which broke down to about $37 per hour of effort. Meanwhile, my email newsletter took about 5 hours a week, and it was driving about $3,000 a month in sales. That's $150 an hour. Now, I wasn't going to drop the podcast because I love it and it builds valuable connection with my audience. But seeing those numbers helped me figure out that I needed to prioritize more energy to email and figure out how to streamline the podcast. So this brings us to the famous 80-20 rule. You've probably heard of this. It's also known as the Pareto principle. It suggests that roughly 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. I have found that to be stunningly accurate in business. When you analyze your activities, you'll likely discover that a small handful are generating the bulk of your revenue. One of my students, she's a web designer, she realized that custom website projects were eating up 70% of her time, but only generating 30% of her income. Meanwhile, her template shop, which took minimal ongoing effort, was bringing in 70% of her revenue. So she pivoted her business to focus primarily on templates and only took on select custom projects at premium rates. By doing this, she was able to increase her income and decrease her working hours at the same time. Once you've run the numbers, create your priority list. I sort mine into these categories. Power activities. These are your highest ROI tasks that directly drive revenue. Support activities. These support your power activities and, they need ongoing attention. And then there's drain activities. These produce little to no return on your time investment. They're just a drain. So set a stake in the ground here. Commit to spending at least 60% of your working time on your power activities. That one shift can make a huge difference. Now, I'm a systems girl at heart. You probably know that about me. So let's talk about how to track and optimize these profitable activities. The right tools can make this process so much easier. For time tracking, I used Toggle for years, but I recently switched to a new app that I found called Clockify. Both are super easy. You just click a button when you start a task and then click again when you finish. I promise you that if you track your time for a month, you will have crystal clear data on where your time is actually going versus where you thought it was going. I track my time every day, and I have for years. Whenever I feel like I'm not getting enough of the right things done, I'll dig into my reports and usually discover that I've been wasting time or spending too much time on low ROI activities. For financial tracking, don't overthink this. A simple spreadsheet is all you need to get started. Here's what to do. First, create a spreadsheet with columns for activity, time spent, this is just hours, revenue generated, and then hourly ROI. Then track your main business activities for 2 to 4 weeks. At the end of each week, note the approximate revenue that's connected to each activity. Again, don't overthink this. It doesn't have to be exact. We're just trying to get a general idea. And then divide the revenue by the hours spent to see your hourly ROI. The key here is consistency, not complexity. You don't need fancy formulas or automated dashboards, just the discipline to record what you're doing and the results you're getting. This simple practice will give you great insight into which activities are truly driving your business forward. And if you want more tips on gaining financial clarity in your business, check out episode 49. I'll drop a link to it in the show notes. But tools are only part of the equation. You also need techniques to maintain focus on your high ROI activities. Here's what works for me. First, time blocking. I schedule specific blocks dedicated to my power activities, and I treat these appointments as sacred. No social media, no email checking during those blocks. Just focused work on what moves the needle. And I have a free time blocking spreadsheet that you can grab to get started. I'll include a link to it in the show notes as well. Second, batching. Instead of one email at a time, I'll batch write a whole week's worth in a single focused session. This really cuts down on the startup and transition time between tasks, which eats up a lot of time. Third, power blocks. I have a dedicated 2-hour time block every morning where I work on my most important project for the week. This project will always be one of my power activities. So this ensures that no matter what fires I end up fighting later on, I've already moved my business forward in meaningful ways. I learned this approach the hard way. For years, I started my day checking email and social media just for a few minutes. And, the next thing I knew, it would be noon and I hadn't touched my most important work. These systems aren't just nice to have, they're the difference between working hard and working smart. When you consistently direct your focus toward high ROI activities, you will be amazed at how much more you accomplish with the same or less effort. Now let's talk about maintaining focus and motivation. We've all been there. Knowing exactly what we should be doing, but getting pulled in a million different directions. Maintaining focus on your profit-generating activities takes more than just good intentions. One strategy that's been helpful for me is creating a not-to-do list. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's a list of activities that you commit to either not doing, delegating, or really severely limiting. My not-to-do list includes accepting unsolicited appointment requests and trying to master every new social platform that pops up. I just don't do either one of those anymore. Another powerful technique is visualizing the impact. When I'm tempted to drift away from my power activities into busy work, I literally picture the difference in my bank account. I ask myself, is this task worth $40 an hour or $400 an hour to my business? This mental reframing usually gets me back on track. And finally, don't underestimate the power of accountability either. Now, personally, I'm really good at holding myself accountable. But if you need a little external accountability, then share your power activities with a business buddy who will check in on your progress, or even on social media. Okay, we've covered a lot today. So let's recap the key steps in uncovering and focusing on your most profitable business activities. First, list all your business activities without judgment. Identify which ones directly contribute to revenue. Calculate the ROI for each by dividing revenue by time invested. Categorize them as power, support, or drain activities. Commit to spending at least half your time on power activities. Use tools and techniques to track and maintain your focus. And create systems that protect your time for your highest value work. Now, here's your action step. And yes, I want you to start this today, not next week, not when you think you have time. First, create a simple tracking system, whether it's a note on your phone, a document on your computer, or just a simple paper notebook. Starting today, track every business activity you do for the next week. Set a timer to remind you hourly if you need to. After collecting a week's worth of data, schedule a 60-minute business audit. During this hour, categorize your activities. Estimate the revenue that each one generates, and then calculate your return per hour. Then divide those activities into your categories: power, support, and drain. Then the final step is to create your focus plan. How will you increase time on your power activities? What drain activities can you eliminate entirely? All right, that's it for today, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. If this episode resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you would subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback helps other solo business owners find this content. And be sure to head over to toniakendrick.com/54 to check out the show notes. You'll find links to all the resources mentioned today. Until next time.